Hi, I'm Terry O'Reilly, founder of OBP Australia, a service for overseas-born professionals looking to either get their first job in Australia or advance their career once they're established in their profession. Welcome to the podcast. Each episode, I'll be talking to an ex-OBP Australia client who's been successful in finding employment in Australia. We'll get to hear about their journey and what advice they have for job seekers. Irfan is a senior delivery lead, a digital transformation leader and board director of PMI Melbourne Chapter. With experience in both agile and traditional delivery methods and a pragmatic approach to change, he's worked across industries including retail, financial services, FinTec, consulting, health, insurance, government and automotive. Arriving in Australia in 2015, already with significant experience overseas, his career has flourished in a series of impressive leadership roles. Irfan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Terry. It's a pleasure.
Now, we first met in 2015. I think that's right?
Yep, that's right.
So take yourself back to when you first arrived about 7 years ago and tell us about those first few weeks or months.
Yeah, sure. So I landed in Australia in 2015. I think it was the month of June, winter, straight coming from extreme heat. So that was a pleasant surprise. But then I had my family with me. My second daughter, younger daughter, was born in here after I landed in here in a few months' time. At the same time, I was then struggling to get a job. So a bit of challenging time to find a house, get my family settled, find a job. So it was a bit of challenging time, still remember.
The immigration process, it's a major upheaval in your life, isn't it? It's a quite difficult.
Yes, it is indeed. I mean, it's not an easy task to move your whole family to a different country which is thousands of kilometers away. So Australia is a bit unique in the sense that it's far, far away from the countries like Pakistan and India. So it's quite a very challenging, I think, thing to move your family overseas.
Now, you mentioned you struggled initially to find work. What were you doing at the start and what did you do to change your strategy?
So I was seeking some help from the friends, like I think you know Sajid. He was my closest connection in Australia, and he was, I think, already in touch with yourself, and he had already landed a job. He had, I think, he's received some professional help from you as part of the institution I think you were part of, or
That's right.
Yep. So and some other friends as well, right? But I was getting there. It was helping up, but not to the extent that I would land on a job. Couple of reasons. One was that my domain was not purely technical domain, like I was not a developer, a hands-on developer, but also that professional help is quite different to the personal help that you seek from your friends. So I realized it a little bit later when I was not getting my first job.
So can you remember what was it that you changed? You met me, you sought professional guidance, but was there anything that stood out as being significant in your change in your approach to looking for work?
Yeah, like the first thing that I had realized that it's finding a job, it's in itself is a job. So you have to kind of develop an approach where you would sort of work from 9 to 5 to hunt a job, right? And then with the right context, like what market you're aiming for, what's your experience, what's relevant, what's not relevant. You just can't jump yourself into a lot of things at the same time, because another friend of mine had mentioned that he had applied for 1,500 jobs before he actually landed on his first job. So I was quite puzzled. I was confused. What's the right strategy? Whether I go for the same approach, like apply for thousand plus sort of jobs, or actually chose very specific um, jobs where my experience and where my skill set actually matches up, and target that particularly with some defined approach. So that's the, I think, was the main thing in those early months. And I think when I got in touch with you, I had then a defined sort of a structure in terms of what's the preference, whether to hit uh, directly to the company or talk to the recruiters, or have some coffee catch-ups, build your network, all those type of things. But it should be structured. It should not be, I think, a hodgepodge, a haphazard. I think that's where I think it helped.
Yes, 1,500 jobs, you can be guaranteed that
Yeah,
something's not working there. Yeah, you'd
absolutely.
probably hope that he would identify that a little bit earlier. But anyway, so do you remember what avenue you took to get your first interview? Was it a direct approach? Did you use a recruiter?
It was a direct application. I still remember. I think the one that I can recall was with the TAFE Institute, based in another city, not in Melbourne. And then I actually had refused them, that since I did not want to spend money on the flights because I was
I
saving for
remember that. Yes,
yeah, I was saving for my family expenses and all that. So I called them, I told them that it's not possible for me to uh, buy tickets, etc. And they were ready to give me the tickets. I said, okay, that's fine. So they had their assessment kind of more than half the day, like they would invite you, and then you will go through a written assessment, and then followed with an interview and all that. So I did that. It was a good experience. So that was the my first significant memory of appearing into an interview.
And did you get that job or you declined that one?
I did not,
Did not.
but it
Do
was a very
you,
good experience.
yeah. Do you remember roughly how many you had before you were successful in landing the job?
Um, so initially with my solo approach, I was not getting much interviews, but later on, I think when you were emphasizing the importance of um, the structured way, having some those keywords, and uh, working on your communication skills and all that. So I think I had definitely two-digit interviews, definitely around 10 or 10 plus before I
Wow.
landed
Yep.
on a job. Yep.
And you do get better as you do more interviews. Would you agree?
Yes, yes. So initially it was like normally there are 2 or 3 rounds of interviews for the positions I was applying for, right? So initially it was just the first level, like the first interview, and then got better at it. So second level interviews. So that's how it progressed, I think.
And in the interviews that you did, what do you think is the difficult part of a job interview?
I think there are a couple of things. The first thing is that you should have absolute confidence that you are the right person, you're the right fit for the job because of the reasons A, B, C, D. And then the second thing is, after that confidence, to have that sort of culture fit, um, which is again a buzzword, but I think it's very um, uh, popular as well. But like it's important, yet you don't realize that what's the culture fit. Why do they even talk about the culture fit? But this is something the companies, the hiring managers, they're actually looking for, because ultimately, after they have the confidence that yes, you have got the skill sets, but you have whether you have got the right behaviors, the right communication skills, the right set of values. Can you gel in with other team members that they have got in their office? So that's it's pretty important. And a new person, when he or she lands into the Australian market, they probably don't realize that the culture fit is so much important to secure your job in here.
And how do you identify whether you have the cultural fit or not? So you see a job advertised, you go for the interview. What sort of things, what examples can you think, well, that's a good fit with me, I'm a good fit with them? What are we talking about there?
Yeah, again, there are a couple of things. One is to do your research beforehand, when you're applying or before you're applying for that particular role. And then the second thing is you should have got some networking opportunities in terms of volunteering or being part of, like going and mingling with other people who are actually working, talking to them, and observing how they talk, how they uh, basically um, what's their approach in terms of to different things, whether it's the day-to-day sort of um task to your job or in general things in life, right? Your um, other day-to-day sort of living habits, whether it's barbecue or traveling or sporting events or purely work related, if it's project management or business analysis or um, development or other domains. So just I think observing and noticing like how they're behaving and how they're approaching different things and try to approach it in the same way and try to talk to them, discuss things, communicate, see how do they respond, whether they are they seem you're an alien and you're not understanding what they're trying to communicate, or you're actually getting there and then responding back. So it comes with a little bit of time and with a little bit of practice and a little bit of intentional effort to mingle with people and network and try to understand how you're going
Right.
in terms of the culture fit. Yep.
So you really have to immerse yourself in the culture, don't you? Be
Yep.
not afraid to go out and
Yep.
experience different things, and you can calibrate your approach the more you have interaction with different types of people. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Like if I'm a hiring manager and I see a person is skillful, but um, he's not able to communicate or not talk about those things which that team which he or she would be part of would feel comfortable, like he would not or she would not be participating actively, then it would have a leverage on hiring process.
And I guess you're on the other side now, having a leadership role. You're looking at bringing people into your organisations as well, and you're probably thinking about what you went through in the early days when you see a new person come in. Are you?
You're not to that leadership level, but definitely to an extent that I can now recommend people to the hiring managers. So I have interviewed, I think in my previous company in a consulting organization, and I have even interviewed for the position of my manager. It was an interesting bit.
Wow.
Yeah, so my the leadership team in that consulting firm had that sort of confidence on me to get me actually engaged for that director level role. So it was an interesting experience actually.
Well, I suppose, often people in the team are the best really to know
Yep,
what the job involves, aren't they?
yep,
Yeah.
definitely. Definitely.
So that's when you arrived, when you started looking for work, you applied for jobs, got interviews and so on. Let's go back even further. What did you know about Australia before you came?
Um, yeah, the cricket, since I was, yeah, like anybody from Pakistan and India you speak to, there are 99.9% chances that person would be interested in cricket. So, well, cricket was one sort of identity. The Australians are best in terms of sports and sporting events and all that. The other thing was I had a little bit of, I don't know why, there was an impression that they are a little bit, they have a bit of prejudice or they're biased a little bit or they're, but actually I didn't feel anything like that when I moved in, but I had that sort of perception in my mind.
Interesting. And do you think the common thread there of cricket and perhaps some other cultural things was the reason you chose Australia as your destination? Because I imagine there would be other opportunities like the UK or Canada or
Yeah.
the
So there
United
are,
States.
yeah, mainly I think Canada and Australia, because UK and US is a little bit tough until you have a sponsorship or something like that. So among those, yeah, I probably mentioned that Sajid was here, and there was actually a chain of friends who actually had migrated to Australia. So Sajid was my friend, but somebody else was Sajid's friend, and somebody else was Sajid's friend's friend. So there was actually a few people's chain I knew, and some couple of people who actually had worked with my organization, they had moved before I had actually joined that organization in Pakistan. So there was a sort of a chain of, you can say, references, and that was one of the reasons. Yeah.
And that was to Melbourne initially?
Melbourne. Yep.
Yeah. So those connections was a reason you came to Melbourne. You chose the city, yes?
That's right. Yep.
Excellent. So thinking about what Australia was like, your impression of it from Pakistan, how did it differ when you arrived? Was it similar to what you thought, or what was the difference between your expectations and reality?
Um, well, the weather was harsh.
So
One thing that
you're coming into a winter here, right?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
came into winter, but even some days like when it's a sunny day, but and if you're inside the car and you haven't turned the air conditioning on, like you can actually feel the heat in winter as well. Like um, so, yeah, weather patterns I think was not that sure of what kind of weather it will be. Uh, so there are a few things which you actually hear about, but it's different when you actually experience them, right? So weather is one of those things, and same with other things. Um, Struggling to find the accommodation first, and then of course the job, finding the job. Um it was what I can say is the difference is was it was much harder than I had actually envisaged that it would be to land on a
Right.
job. Yep.
And more expensive too, I presume, if
And
you're
more expensive as well. Yep.
you're not getting an income. It's a stressful time, isn't it, where you're
Yes.
sort of eating away at your savings, I guess.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So um, tell us about a little bit about your job and what you do on a daily basis.
Well, my current role is of a delivery lead or agile delivery lead. Um, in some instances, it's another name of a Scrum Master or a senior Scrum Master. Um, Interestingly, I have my titles have been changing across the different organizations, um, but that was like the first initial thing was also because I had done a lot of different things, and I can now recall some conversation with yourself that been a scheduler, a business analyst, maybe a technical writer, a project manager. What should I do? Should I apply all of these roles or be specific? So anyhow, I've made a few transitions, but um, mostly I have done project management. So I've been into project management roles, and now working as a delivery lead in computer share on a daily basis. My job is to keep my team motivated, uh, do enough planning to be able to deliver in increments, short increments, happens fortnightly, 2 week cycles, part of a big program of work, trying to transform the whole business, which is a multi-year program of work. But my job is to keep my stakeholders informed, engaged, keep the team motivated, get things done in short sprint iterations, take the feedback from the stakeholders, incorporate it into next cycle of planning, and keep delivering, keep iterating, and keep delivering.
And let's say within a team lead role or a scrum master role, what's the real challenge in that job? What's the tough part?
I think it's related with the people because, again, end of the day, different people have different skill sets, different backgrounds, they have different context, and bringing that alignment into different type of stakeholders to achieve something, to get the result, to get the outcome that you need for the customers. I think that's always a challenge. Um, so
And
yeah,
does it vary across industry? Because you've worked in quite a few, haven't you? Not just finance, but you've worked in government, automotive, a few other areas as well. Is that right?
yeah. When you're part of a consulting company, then you get to work in different um, sectors. Like one time we will be working on a project for an automotive company. After 6 months, we will be working for a company who's in health sector and things like that. So that's the benefit of working in consulting.
So how does that inform? It's an internal role you have at the moment, right? You're with the company, you're working on projects within that company, correct?
Yes, it's a product-based
Yeah.
organization now.
So
Yeah.
how does that compare to working for a client as a consultant?
It's being on the other side of the table actually. So It's basically when you're part of the consulting, you're a vendor, you are actually trying to engage with the client, trying to deliver it on time within the budget, report to them any issues, surface them, highlight any risks, keep them engaged, informed, make sure they're happy. You have a lot of pressure when you're working on that side of the table. On this side of the table, the pressure is still there, but not a different kind of pressure. It's more of the stakeholder engagement, internal stakeholder engagement. There's people from marketing, a brand, and um, uh, operations, and legal, and risk, and compliance, and those. So it's a different kind, totally different lens, and you get to choose, basically go and provide your input for selecting actually the vendor on the other side of the table and get that work done, part of the work done as part of the project from that vendor.
Right.
Yeah.
And what is it you enjoy the most in your work?
Yeah, it's. I think again the people. I think the right. If you've got the people who whom you can actually align on quickly, and you can communicate well, and they can understand you, and you can understand them, and you have a bit of alignment. So, and you have a good team where you can not only have work but also a bit of fun as part of the work, because
Sure.
um, yeah, we're not here to basically we're here to live a good life with the work balance, work-life balance, and actually then at the same time do some meaningful work, right? So having that sort of environment, that's something that I enjoy on a daily basis. Yeah.
So you mentioned people being really important, that interaction with people, leading people, stakeholders, and so on. And when you first arrived, because your roles hadn't been deeply technical, that's correct?
That's correct. Yep.
What advice would you have for somebody who's in that position? Because it's a little bit harder, isn't it? If you come across as a software developer or a tester or something,
Yep.
you know your technology, it's pretty clear cut. Things don't change that much across countries. But when you're dealing with people, you have the interactions that can be quite different across culture. What advice would you have for somebody who's coming in looking for a managerial role without much of a deep technical foundation?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, I actually know a lot of many of my friends who are actually in the development side, and they were able to land on a job quite quickly as compared to myself. And that the reason is because I'm not a developer. So most of my job, like 80 or 90% of my job, that pertains to good communication. So if you don't have those good communication skills, you're not gonna land on a job quickly until you actually improve those skills and be able to uh, understand how this all works, and how you're gonna manage the stakeholders if you're not good at communicating them, understanding them, and uh, trying to solve those problems that they want them to be solved. So in my role, I think that's why I realized that it's more important for me to get myself some professional help, and that's why
Yeah.
I contacted you.
And what about once you're in a job, what sort of formal professional development have you had? Or has it been more incidental and learn as you go? Or do you have formal professional development programs within your jobs?
Yeah, couple of tracks I've been following. One is that I think you know that I've been part of the Project Management Institute PMI chapter.
Yeah, so you're
Before,
a board director, correct?
yes, it's a volunteer position, but yes, I'm on the board. So I have been part of PMI even before I moved to Australia. So I was immediately thought this is the first thing that I need to do, be part of that network. And I've been continuing that volunteering since 2015. When I landed in there, I was a newsletter coordinator. Then I was uh, managing the social media. Then I was chose to go for the elections and was part of the board in 2018. And there was a gap in between, but then still part of the board. Yeah, but that was first track. The second track was, yes, I've been doing some certification that have also helped in terms of my confidence, my knowledge. So that's another track that I've been checking on. So I've done a couple of technical certifications as well along the
Okay.
way, like Microsoft fundamentals, of course, not the advanced level, but the Microsoft Azure fundamentals and AWS cloud practitioner. In
Is that
addition
just so
to
you stay
relevant
with some,
and
yeah, some
understand
level of
the
relevance, right?
terminologies and what the technical leads and people they're talking about, so I understand those terminologies.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, I've attended many PMI events. I always tell people this is probably the best professional body across all industries that I've seen. And all professions have their own professional body, but it's a really great place for networking. And for people like
Mm,
yourself,
yep.
developing stakeholder management skills, it's really the perfect place to do that sort of professional development. So that's really useful. Now, you don't need. Do you need PMP certification to be a member of PMI?
No, you don't. You don't.
You don't. And you don't always have to be a project manager either. That's right. They have other, you'll have developers in
No, yeah,
there
yeah, yeah,
or,
yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. If you have an interest in project management, um, then definitely you can join. So it's not mandatory to be a project manager or be a PMP.
yeah,
We can actually help you become a PMP if you want,
yep.
or we can
And
help you become a project manager if you want to be a PM.
yeah, and you would recommend that if that's a career path. Yes, PMP is useful.
Absolutely, is still gold standard in the construction, not only and in the defense and in IT and telecom, and almost all the industries.
So people often ask me whether PMP or Prince 2 is useful. What would be your take on that question?
If you're aiming to continue working in a government sector, that's where probably Prince 2 has relevance. Like when I joined Department of Human Services in 2015, they had their methodology based on Prince 2 and some other government organizations because Prince 2 is organization was based in UK, and then Australia is very much has, of course, inheritance from UK, right? So it's that that side of thing. But all the private sector that they follow PMI.
Thanks for joining us today, Irfan. Just before we leave, do you have any advice that you would give to somebody who is about to enter Australia or is about to start the immigration process?
I think the early you seek some professional help, the better it would be, and probably the earlier you will land on a job, I think. Um, because no matter how exceptional you are in terms of your skill set or your technical domain, you still need to polish your communication skills and your approach in terms of how exactly you're going to apply for different roles. Um, and especially for the people who are coming from the South Asian region, I think it's more important. And in all the other places where the English is not the first language, it's more important to be in touch with somebody who can provide the professional help. It will definitely expedite you landing onto the new role.
Excellent. Great advice there. So get some guidance as early as possible, preferably before you leave your country of origin, because a lot can be done in preparation.
Yep, absolutely.
And yeah, so well, congratulations on your career and the way it is flourishing. So great work there, and it's good to talk to you again after all these
COVID.
years after
Yep.
COVID. Yes, exactly. What's happening with the PMI events at the moment? Are they back to face, or are they still online?
Now we were actually organizing the hybrid events, so everybody who want to join online can join online, and then we also had an in-person arrangement, but that is gonna change from next year, I think. So we will switch back to in-person events from next year.
Great. And if people want to become a member of the Melbourne chapter or any chapter, there is a connection. So if you're a member of, let's say, the Sydney chapter, can you transfer that to Melbourne?
Yes, you can. You can.
Yeah. So people just inquire through the website, do they?
Yes, just visit the website, PMI Melbourne chapter website, and then inquire, and definitely someone from the board would be in contact with you.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us, Irfan. Have a great day and keep in touch.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sherry, and have a good night.
OBP Australia provides guidance and support with job applications and approaching employers, industry awareness, interview coaching, and language and communication. You'll also be introduced to your professional peers already working in Australia, so you can get the lowdown on what's happening in your industry or profession. If you're looking for guidance and support to find your next job, email me at terry@obpaustralia.com.au. Let's talk.